I'm leaving Germany. In fact, I have already left and I'm not coming back ever. I mean, I will come back to visit, but not for living.
It's a great video on how this is about Germany, but it's true across most of Europe, is how the EU is fucking over Europe.
That time is over. Over the years, a lot of people have come up to me and said, hey, I watched your videos about Germany and it convinced me to move to Germany. And now I have to say, I'm sorry guys, things have changed. I've been living in Germany for the better part of my life. I grew up in the south of Germany, lived for 30 years plus in Germany, the last 8 of which were in Berlin. But with every year that passes, things are getting kind of worse and worse every year a little bit.
They are.
Quality of life in Germany.
It's one thing that infuriates me. I've been through Europe as a child to a lot of different places, and it's changing so much, and not for the better, for the worse, and yet everywhere. And that's because of the EU. The European Union was the worst thing to happen to Europe. It was the way for the US deep state to force its will on Europe undemocratically, basically. Because Europe is doing things not in the interest of the European citizens, but corrupt elite in Washington.
Is degrading to a point where I don't see a future in this country anymore. So I'm moving away. And in this video, I just want to share my honest opinion about the state of affairs in Germany, give my 2 cents about it, and tell you what led me to this decision. Especially if you are considering moving to Germany, building a life there, you should watch this video. It all comes down to politics in the end. The decisions your leaders make for your country affect everybody, in a good or in a bad way. For 20 years, I've been...
And again, responsibility for everything that's going wrong in the world, everywhere, should lie with the media. The media is supposed to be the tool highlighting problems, so there could be political pressure to fix those problems. The media covers up problems and convinces people that white is black and getting fucked over is really the best thing in the world. Like, for example, green policies that, while places like China burn endless coal or whatever, the EU countries commit political suicide by investing in expensive and unreliable green energy. Yeah, as an example.
Watching the government make one bad decision after another. And I just can't take it anymore. I can't. Watching politics in Germany is like watching a prequel to the movie Idiocracy. If you haven't watched that movie, you definitely should. It's basically what's happening in most of the world. Germany's not an exception. I'd love to help fixing it, you know, but then...
Yeah, that's a very sad and good example.
You would have to go into politics, and then you have to deal with all the people that are already there.
You could become one of many members of AFD that mysteriously died right before their elections. You could become one of those guys.
Which will drive you mad for the rest of your life. So the only option you have left is to leave. In the end, it all comes down to quality of life. And quality of life in Germany is degrading every year more. And the pace seems to be accelerating. So I don't think that country will be a good place to live in the foreseeable future. Maybe in the far future again. It's not all bad, of course. But if you can choose where you live, there's far better places to do that. I have made hundreds of videos about Germany, and you know all the good stuff already. So this video isn't gonna be about pros and cons. This video is about like the decisions that made me leave. Why is Germany not the best place to live anymore? First, the economy. Germany has been stagnant or even in a recession for the last few years. And
this is going to become so much worse over the next year because of the Iran war. Because energy costs are what forcing all deindustrialization in Germany. And when they cut themselves off from cheap Russian oil. Now they're cut off from cheap Gulf oil. There's only, I don't know how you can run any type of factory in Germany right now.
Last year especially has been very brutal. There's job cuts in all sectors, obviously because of the decisions.
Yep, industry cuts 100,000 jobs within a year. It's self-inflicted. Europe allowed itself to become part of, like we talked about in the last video, go after Russia because it's not a US puppet state and under CIA control. So we have to attack them. We use Ukraine to attack Russia, and we get the EU to go along with it and cut themselves off from cheap Russian oil and devastate their economies.
Politicians made, one of which is the energy. As you all know, Germany is an industrial powerhouse. We don't have many resources.
Was is a key word. It was like a decade ago even. It was still the powerhouse of Europe in terms of industry. That foundation of that being a powerhouse was the cheap energy from Russia. when they cut themselves off from that, it was a slow process, a gradual process of deindustrialization. Now with this Iran war, that's going to be the finishing blow, because all these companies were already struggling under the energy prices. Now with even higher ones, they're finished. Germany is just going to have a failed economy soon.
But we have a lot of like industry, that produces things. For those industries, you need a lot of energy. But Germany managed over the last decade to become the most expensive country in the world when it comes to electricity. No other countries in the world, maybe UK also, pays as.
Yeah, of course, part of that is the push for green energy. Germany, one of those controlled governments in Europe in terms of by the deep state, the US deep state and its agenda, and pushed green policy the hardest. And look at that, highest energy cost.
As much for a kilowatt. It's ridiculous how expensive electricity.
And Switzerland is one of the least captured countries in Europe, because it has direct democracy where voters can vote directly on issues. And that is, deep state is very hard for deep state to deal with that. And so it's one of the most, it's got cheapest energy, cheapest electrical costs. It's not an accident. Least US control, the best country for electrical prices.
City is here. Germany had this awesome plan to become 100% renewable energy, which is a good thing. I believe in renewable energy, sustainable.
Trying to become 100% renewable energy. That's definitely a policy pushed by elites in Washington. And just to let you know, this will come out when the dollar collapses. It'll be really confirmed. All the mechanisms where they funded pro-global warming studies and how they conned the world into believing in that. Yeah, global warming is not real. There is one type of global warming that's real. That is, ever been outside on a hot day and put your hand on like the road and it burns, right? Yes. Covering a large part of the world in asphalt raises temperatures. Yep. So the world is getting hotter as more in the world is being covered by cement and asphalt. That much is true, but it has nothing to do with CO2 emissions. Absolutely nothing. And also, this is a particular peeve of mine. The ocean levels are going to rise X amount. The places along the coast will be flooded. That's that narrative that they've been spinning for decades, the global warming activists. Well, you see, Antarctica, there's not much asphalt in Antarctica, or cement, or human construction at all. So you know what? Temperatures in Antarctica haven't been going up. There's just as much ice there as there was decades ago. And 99% of landlocked ice, that means ice that's on top of ground, which if it melts would increase the ocean's surface level, is here. If this isn't melting, oceans are not going to rise. Zero. The water world is never happening unless the Antarctic melts. And the Antarctic isn't getting warmer. So that's not happening. So if you have any concern about buying oceanfront property, about maybe the ocean will go up and take... No, it won't happen. That's why Obama and others are buying all these beach properties or whatever. They know that. It's bullshit. Global warming is just a big racket. And Germany has destroyed itself because of this global warming con job.
But the way it was implemented was just the most stupid thing I've ever seen in my life. No, there's more stupid things, but it's one of them. So basically, we got rid of all our nuclear power plants before we had other power plants up and running.
California is another example of this radical stupidity in action in terms of energy prices, gas prices, everything. It's leftist idiocy based on a lie that is global warming.
To replace that energy, which leads to this kind of pretty long, decade-long transition to have high electricity costs. Also, you have to import electricity from other countries. I don't want to get into the details. This is just one fact that makes Germany an unattractive place to do business for businesses because it's so expensive. So they move to other places abroad where it's cheaper.
You saw that graph from earlier where Germany has the highest electrical prices. All industries compete with each other across borders, especially in the EU with its open borders. Why would you have your factory in the place where electricity costs the most? It makes no sense whatsoever. And also, so that's because of policies of the government and also cutting yourself off from cheap Russian oil.
But of course, the effect of that is less jobs available, more unemployment, etc. You just have to look at the news. All the major big companies in Germany having mass layoffs. Each month, 2025, 10,000 here, 15,000.
Imagine being someone in Germany trying to get a job in this kind of market. And with the Iran war set to accelerate this tenfold over the next year.
There literally every month, news like that coming out. So if you are looking for a job, if you want to come to Germany to work, it's not a good time anymore. It was 5 years ago, but
5 years ago, that's before the Ukraine war started and Europe cut itself off from cheap Russian energy.
Things have changed. And it's not only the electricity prices, it's also AI is competing with human jobs. It all comes together, which makes Germany not a good place to look for a job anymore. And apart from that, it's also not motivating here to work more, because if you earn more, not much more, the percentage of what you have to pay in taxes and also social insurances and everything, it goes up so.
Taxes are absolutely insane in Europe. Absolutely insane. You like being able to keep 30% of your income. Go live in Europe.
Much. If you calculate all the things you have to pay from your income, you can't even keep half. You can keep maybe like 30% of your income after deducting all the taxes and social insurances. Germany is a good country for like middle class earnings because then you don't pay so much tax. And then you have to pay 19% tax again on the things you buy, you as a consumer. People keep forgetting. And I think that's...
Yeah, not only can you only keep 30% of your income, you're paying 19% tax on everything you buy through VAT.
Also why the system is designed the way it is, the taxes and everything. You're not only paying your income tax and social insurances, you're also paying VAT, Umsatzsteuer, which is 19%. If you put it in perspective.
Inflation is also shadow tax, absolutely, because you buy something and its value hasn't, in real terms, hasn't gone up, but because of inflation, prices of everything go up 20%. Now you have a 20% capital gain tax on you because in real terms, in gold, in value of gold, for example, what you have hasn't gone up in value, but the government says it has, and so now you have to pay taxes on it.
7 out of 10 hours you are working for the state, which, in my opinion, is too much. You shouldn't work 7 out of
30. It's insane, the amount of taxes.
10 hours for the state. It's just in no relation. You know, Germany is a country of hardworking people. Germans, they don't love work, but they work hard. That has its pros and cons, because if your politicians are also hardworking people and they are working hard in the wrong direction, they are working very hard to ruin this country. Just imagine how hard you have to work as a politician to ruin a nation with 80 million hardworking people. You've got to work damn hard for that. You don't have to take all this fact from me, you know, I'm just summing it up here. All the economy advisors in Germany, all the big firms, they're saying this to the politicians, but they're not doing anything about it. They just act. If you ignore the issue, it's gonna...
What you're saying, Proton Snail, about investments in the United States, so much foreign-owned assets in the United States. Yes, that's one part of funding our deficits and propping up the dollar. All these people from abroad that bring their money into the United States, buy U.S. assets. That's one thing propping up our current insane economic position of just borrowing from abroad instead of actually producing anything.
Gonna go away on their own, but it's not. And things are even worse if you're self-employed. Germany hates entrepreneurs, you know. They've been saying for years they need to make things more attractive for startups, for small businesses, for entrepreneurs, to attract them. But they're doing exactly the opposite. They make it every year kind of more unattractive. If you want to do anything in this country, they're gonna make it as hard as possible for no reason at all. And if you're self-employed, you have to pay even more than employees for social insurances. You have to pay double the rate for health insurance. Now they even want to make pension insurance obligatory for self-employed people because the pension system is falling apart and they're just scrambling to get more money in the system, which will lead to more entrepreneurs and freelancers to leave, like me, because I'm not doing that. You know how much pension insurance is in Germany? Guess? No, it's more than that. You already have to pay like 18% in health insurance, and then you will have to pay another 18.5% for pension insurance. 18.5%. If you earn €100 being self-employed, €18 will go into pension insurance, into a system you will never see anything.
Yes, it's on the verge of collapse, just like Social Security in the United States. If you're a young person paying in Social Security United States, you're never getting that. You never. When dollar collapses, I mean, Social Security is going to be cut in real terms to a fraction of what it currently is. I mean, Social Security is a sham that benefits the first people to get it, and the last people to pay in get screwed before it collapses. All types of Social Security in every country is a long-term scam.
Significant coming back, because once we are getting old enough to get pension, inflation will have eaten most of it, and purchasing power of the money paid in will be nothing, because
it's going to happen sooner than he realizes. When next 10 years, the euro and dollar are going to spiral out of control. And yeah, all those people that wasted a huge part of their income paying into a system that's never going to pay it back.
Germany has a very bad pension system, not like in the USA where you can like invest it in different things. Germany, you just pay it in, and the government puts it into who knows what, but it's not growing, you know? It's just like...
The United States has Social Security, and everyone has to pay that, and it's just as badly managed as yours in Germany.
2%, I think, a year, it increases in value, which inflation is already eating up. So you're not gonna get a good pension in Germany.
You have to understand, Social Security, whether in the United States or Germany, the type he's doing there, which basically just the government taking it, and government doesn't save anything. Governments anywhere don't save anything. So when they tax money for Social Security, that money that they get in, the cash flow in, is immediately spent on something the same year. Whereas like before Social Security existed, in like the United States, and you decided to save 10% of your income for your retirement, you put that in a bank, and that bank would then loan that out to a company, and it would earn interest, and it would help fuel the economy. It would add to the pool of investment money of your country. Once Social Security was implemented and you pay 10% Social Security, that 10% is paid out immediately to someone who's going to spend it right away. There's no saving at all. Social Security is a way to force a country to spend more and save less. It's terrible for the long-term health of any country that implements it. It's great for whoever is right on the verge of retiring when you implement the Social Security system. For them, it's great. I think the first person to get Social Security paid $18 into the system and got something like $20,000. They paid $18,000 into the Social Security system and like got something absurd like $20,000 out of it. That type of system, great for the first people that get the money, terrible for the last people that end up paying money in.
So it's not worth paying into it. Employed people have to pay for it already. For self-employed people, it was not obligatory. For me, this would be a reason enough to leave Germany, to pay 18% extra on your income. It's mad. And it's not just me, you know, you just have to look at the surveys. There's plenty of surveys out there that ask young people or entrepreneurs, or freelancers, if they want to stay in Germany, if they're thinking about moving abroad, working somewhere else, living somewhere else. And from all the people I know, and I know a lot of freelancers and people who have like small businesses, none of them want to stay in Germany. They either have already left, are about to leave, or are planning to leave. I am here right now in Cyprus. I went to some meetups here, and it's like full of German entrepreneurs. They all left, and they're all leaving to not just here. You know, there's tens of thousands of entrepreneurs living here with businesses. They just can't take it anymore, the system in Germany. They come here, they go to Spain, they go to other places, you know, anywhere but Germany to do business. A lot of people think businesses should pay higher taxes. Wealthy individuals should pay higher taxes. That more money will be in the system. But it's quite the opposite.
Nope, that's not the way it works. Ask California, that's losing its billionaires.
Because if you think like that, you're not living in reality. People and businesses can just move to another country. And you've seen this in other countries where they raise the taxes for rich people, they raise the taxes for businesses. They just move abroad to friendlier places for them. And in the end, you have less tax money in the system, and you have less people who contribute to the society you want to build because they left, because they're pissed off. Just to have it said, I don't have a thing against taxes. If I would see that the tax money I pay is in good hands, you know, they do something good with it, but the amount
is still a problem, even if it's being spent wisely. And when they're taxing you 70, 80% of your income, you know they're spending that unwisely. They wouldn't need to tax 70 or 80% of your income if they were using what they were getting wisely.
You see being wasted on the most stupid things, it's unbelievable.
They're giving money to the black hole that is Ukraine, for example.
So much money is going into war, is going into social welfare for lazy people. I'm not against taxes at all. You know, taxes are a good thing, contributing something to society. The state can do something with that money to make the quality of life for everyone better. But in Germany, I don't see that happening anymore. What I see is that the majority of taxes is being wasted. Penalties are so high if you evade taxes in Germany. It's worse than murder, right? So, but there's no laws keeping politicians accountable for wasting taxes. And they should be accountable because you work, as I said earlier, 7 out of 10 hours for the state, right? And then they waste this money. There's even a book coming out in Germany, or like a magazine, that shows the biggest tax wastes of the country each year. If you look at it, you think like, how on earth is this possible? Who approved those projects wasting billions of taxpayer money? And taxpayer money is literally human life. You work for it. You paid this money with your time that you worked, and just wasting it. I'd be glad to pay 70% of taxes if quality of life would go
I think 50% is already on the high end. 70% is insane.
to the moon, you know, but it's going down. No logic. But you know who Germany is a really good country for? Lazy people.
Yes.
Germany has one of the best social welfare systems in the world. And I mean, it's so good, it's almost not worth working a low-income job because
This is why when Asmongold said, we need universal income, no. He's going to explain why universal income is just terrible. No one works if you have universal income. Why work? Why work if you're just going to get money?
if you work for minimum wage full-time, you barely make more than you would get from social welfare. And by earning a little bit more, I mean getting like a few €100 more per month for working full-time instead of going for a social welfare system. And there's gonna be people in the comments, oh, you just get €550 a month for social welfare. And that's not true. You get €500 cash, and then they pay your flat, where depends where you live, how much it costs. You know, there's limits, of course, but in a city like Munich, for example, they will also pay for a flat that costs €1,000 a month, and then you have health insurance, which would cost €300 a month if you would pay for it on your own. Also, you don't have to pay for Beitragsservice, which is €18 a month, right? If you calculate all those things together, you have like a few €100 less being on social welfare than working a full-time job, 40 hours a week.
It's insane.
On minimum wage. The only logical option for a person being in this situation is to go for social welfare. You have 40 hours a week for yourself. You can work on a side project. You can play video games all day. You can get drunk all day. It doesn't matter what you do. The only thing you have to do is show up at the job center once in a while and say,
That shit insane.
That's it. And you get this for the rest of your life. And what also a lot of people don't know or don't want to know is that if you have children and you are unemployed and get social welfare, your children also will get Bürgergeld. They will get social welfare. Especially for unemployed people with children, it doesn't make any sense to work at all. They can spend time with the children. The children also get like €500 a month in Bürgergeld extra on top of what the parent is getting. So Germany is a great place for lazy people who don't want to work, have a lot of children, get paid from the state. They give you a big flat, a big house for doing nothing.
Yep.
And that's great for them. But it's not great for
And Asmongold wants to implement this type of system that punishes hardworking people. It's universal income.
society as a whole. And some people say that these are just exceptions. Most people, they need the benefits because they can't work, they can't find a job. But I can just tell you from my personal experience, I've been living in Berlin 8 years. I've been living in Neukölln. 25% of people living in Neukölln get social welfare. 1 in 4 people. Public statistics. You can look it up. I know people who have been
1 in
getting
4. 1 in 4.
social welfare in South
The three that actually work are paying for that fourth.
Germany, where I come from, for 20 years, 30 years. Doesn't matter. They don't want to work. They take a job once in a while for a year, then they go back to the system because it's not worth getting a low-income job. But of course, Berlin is the worst city when it comes to this. It's like, in some parts of Germany, it's looked down upon, getting social welfare. In Berlin, it's kind of the opposite.
Asmongold is wrong about universal welfare in that it's impossible. Just come back and talk to me after the dollar's collapsed. And United States is basically a third world country. And you imagine a third world country talking about implementing universal income. It's just insane. No, Asmongold is absolutely delusional on the universal income front. There's no way.
If you have a job,
No, I will say I'm sympathetic in one way in that we spend trillions on the military, so that might have tricked Asmongold into thinking that we have lots of money, we could afford to pay out universal income. No, that trillions we spend on the military is part of a collapsing system, and you can't take it. It goes into maintaining the US dollar hegemony over the world. All our bases around the world, stuff like that. Stuff that if we stop spending money on, the dollar would collapse even faster.
You're like, you're stupid. You're working. Why would you do that? I'm not making this up. I know personally dozens of people who get social welfare, not because they can't work, because they don't want to work, right? And I'm one guy.
Yeah, and that's the most asinine aspects of any type of universal income. It's just people don't want to work anymore. I mean, why work if you could just get it for free? Just focus on keeping your expenses down rather than actually working hard. You could just get $1,000 a month, like Asmongold wants, just spend it on video games, or pirate games, and just live off the $1,000 a month. I mean, why try to be a productive member of society if you have that?
I know dozens of people like that. If I, one guy, know a couple of dozen people who abuse the system, it's not the exception anymore. It's becoming the norm. Berlin alone is losing like hundreds of millions of euros to people who abuse the system. They know this, but they can't do anything about this because it's the law. You have to follow the law. Congratulations for being lazy, I guess, if that's what you want to do with your life. You won the lottery in Germany. This is just one more fact about what's going wrong in Germany. I personally don't want to live in a country where laziness is rewarded and hard work is penalized. There's no logic in that for me.
Yeah, anywhere that implements something like universal income, you're going to have people that actually want to work hard move to a country where they don't have to pay tax to support that.
I'd rather pay my taxes elsewhere. There's another really important thing that has been bugging me a lot about living in Germany, and it's how society interacts with one another, like people. I never had to think about those things, but I am at an age where I have to think about where I want to raise children. And Germany and Germans are really hostile against children. They don't want them. It sounds
Leftist propaganda at work. I mean, this hostility towards children and the nuclear family, that's definitely something our universities have given to us.
absurd, but it really is like that. Germany is not a family-friendly country at all. There are some financial incentives in Germany to have children. You get like Kindergeld and parental leave and all that. But when it comes to like the people and how they view children, it's very negative. Just to give you a few examples. If you go to a restaurant with a child, people in the restaurant, Germans, they will look at you and they make a face like, "Ugh, are you kidding me? Are you seriously bringing this child into the restaurant to ruin my time here?" Everywhere I've been, Southern Europe, Japan, Southeast Asia, if you enter a restaurant with a child, people will light up. You know, they will, hello. They will want to interact with the children. They're nice. They seem happy that they're there. You know, in Germany it's the opposite. If Germans see children in public places,
That's terrible.
they're annoyed. They don't want to have them there, and that says a lot about society. Not in a good way. Being annoyed by children doesn't matter where you are. It's not right. You know, everybody has been a child. Most people have children. They're an integral part of society. They're your future. They're the society's future. You should be happy that they're there. If you want to ride a train in Germany with a baby, there is no proper place to change the diapers. There isn't, and it doesn't make any sense because you're stuck in a train for hours.
This one is
expensive train,
really terrible.
ICE. There is no proper place to do this. It's humiliating for the child and for the parent to be riding on a train in Germany. I guess it's out of the box now. I do have children now, and I've been traveling with them a lot, as you've seen in my videos. I haven't seen a more hostile place to children than Germany. And this is a very sad statement. When I've been to Japan with them, you wouldn't believe the facilities they have. You know, there's nursing rooms everywhere. There's like diaper changing stations everywhere. And those facilities are also like something I've never seen in Europe anywhere. You know, you go in there, there's like sofas for mothers to breastfeed their children. There's free diapers. And once you get children, you also think about where you want to raise them, especially if you have a daughter. I don't think Germany is a good place to raise a daughter anymore, because women in general, they don't feel safe anymore walking down the street at night. You don't have to take it from me. There's public petitions in all major German cities.
Yes, it's one of those topics you're not allowed to talk about. The mainstream media won't cover, but yeah, it's immigration. You let a lot of people that have different views on how you should treat women, and they treat women differently.
Is women want like vouchers for free taxi rides at night. In Berlin, they want to have like women-only subway wagons. And the stories you hear in Berlin, what women have to endure in public transport, it's fucked up. It's fucked up, to be honest. You all know the reasons why it is like that. I don't have to talk about it.
He doesn't have to talk about it. He's worried about talking about it because there are some complete lunatics. It's, oh, migrants, none of them are criminals. It's all nonsense. No. Anyone who comes into your country illegally doesn't respect your laws to begin with.
But the fact is, women in Germany don't feel safe anymore, for good reason. And deciding to raise a daughter in Germany is just, it's not a good thought to have, you know. You want to keep your people safe, children safe, that they grow up in a friendly environment where they can feel
I
safe.
just read a story about a 12-year-old girl in France that broke down in tears when she found out that the men who gang raped her were just released from jail. Insane.
Any time of the day. This is just my opinion, but if a woman can't walk down the street at night and feel safe anymore, you have failed as a society, as a country. That's just my opinion. And it's kind of ridiculous. Every time something happens in Germany, politicians will just say, yeah, we have a knife problem. Knives are killing people. Women are dressed wrong. They should dress differently. And it's not a small thing, but you can also see it in the small things. You can't go to the supermarket anymore without feeling we're living.
12-year-old French girl collapses after judge releases men arrested for gang raping her in Airbnb. Yep, that's the insane state that Europe is in. And you don't hate the media enough. Media is responsible for this.
In a crime-polluted society. Like in Prenzlauer Berg, one of the best neighborhoods in all of Berlin. If you want to go and buy shampoo or a cream, you go in a drugstore, DM. You have to go in many of the drugstores in Berlin to the cashier to get them so they unlock the products.
Yes, this is your standard of life collapsing because you let unlimited men from third world countries just come in.
Because they get stolen so much. Even in the Edeka, in like a normal supermarket, they're locking up alcohol, they're locking up Red Bulls, things that cost $1.50. They're putting security things on them that need to be unlocked at a cashier. What kind of society is this becoming? Another example is Christmas markets. Last year, there have been a few Christmas markets who...
This annoys me so much. Christmas markets being forced to shut down because of crazy foreigners that drive trucks and cars into the crowds.
Cancelled because they can't afford the terror defense anymore because it's too expensive. It costs millions of euros for big Christmas markets.
Having literal immigration erase your traditions, and what you went to with your parents to this Christmas market, and their parents went there too, and all that erased because you're letting in unlimited migrants that also happen to rape women all over the place.
To put those barriers, terror defense up. And if Christmas markets, place of joy,
those
to put those
anti-tank barriers, because people would drive like big trucks like this into the Christmas market. So you need to put in anti-tank barriers to keep them safe. It's insane. If you've got, your country has reached a point where your like cultural events like Christmas market need to be defended like this, you fucked up on immigration. Big time.
Defense up. And if Christmas markets, place of joy, the one thing people look forward to in December when it's cold and ugly outside, if they get cancelled because they can't afford terror defense, many things have gone wrong in this country. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to blame this on migration. Migration isn't a bad thing per se. It's just, there's gonna be a few people.
Migration is a bad thing per se. I'd agree if it's normal migration, like country, first of all, no illegal migration. First step, you do that. Then you set migration to just legal people, and you vet those, and then yes, if that migration can be okay. Having some level of migration, yeah, it's all right, but no H-2B visas, just bringing in cheaper workers that are beholden to the corporation to bring them in. No to that, and no to illegal migration.
Who are doing stupid things, and you have to select them out. But Germany is doing a extremely, extremely bad job at that. One of the bigger problems regarding that is
Almost 2/3 of planned deportations fails. And you know what? The worst of the worst, the ones that do the gang raping, you know what? They come from countries that are pretty fucked up. And because they come from countries that are pretty fucked up, like Afghanistan, it's not safe to deport them back. So the worst of the worst get to stay. That's the type of migration system the EU has.
that even if the people come to Germany to look for a refuge, they get denied. And if they are from certain countries which are considered not safe, Germany cannot send them.
You know, if people come from countries that are not safe, it's probably those individuals too are not safe. But we can't send them back to there. And so they get to just harass and rape women and shoplift and live off social welfare.
Back, even if they are not allowed to stay in Germany, if they're not granted permission to live, to become a resident,
And drive cars into Christmas markets.
to work here, etc. So you have this huge group of people from refugees who come to Germany. Their permission to be here got denied, but they can't be deported to their home country because it's not
All
safe
of them,
there.
all of them need to be sent back. All of these people, it doesn't matter if the country's not safe, send them back to a different country then. So it doesn't matter, just get them out. Make the streets in Germany safe again. Make it so Christmas markets don't need that barrier. Deport, deport, deport. And you know you get to the right place when Christmas markets don't need a barrier, so people aren't driving cars into Christmas market again. Once we get to that part, we can talk about slowing down deportations. But until that happens, until the crime goes down and life returns to normal, just deport like absolute crazy.
So they can't work here, they can't do anything here, but they are here because they're kind of in limbo. And that creates a lot of problems because they can't be part of society, they can't integrate. And some of them, of course, cause some trouble. It's also understandable that.
And also, the part of the reason we have all this, I will connect to that. Remember the last video you watched? Israel's plan to completely destabilize 7 countries around them, like Libya, Syria, Lebanon, Somali. You destabilize those countries and people then run away and they're destabilized so they can't be deported back to those countries. So Israel's policy of completely fucking over its neighbors is fucking over Europe too.
If you are in this limbo, you get a lot of resentment because this country didn't accept you. Another thing that drives
And United States did destabilizing and destruction in Afghanistan.
people away is the unaffordability of Germany, especially when it comes to housing. Cost of living is rising. Germany has become so unaffordable when it comes to housing that people don't even dream about owning a house, owning a flat anymore. Everybody below the age of 35 has basically given up on ever owning real estate to live in. Yeah, it's become so expensive. We were looking at houses or apartments in Berlin, and Berlin is by far not the most expensive city in Germany. There's many cities more expensive. You'd have to have €1 million to buy something for a family. Yeah, with like 3-4 rooms in a normal location. If you're gonna go outside, you can probably find something for like half that. But even $500,000 is like, you're not gonna earn €1 million in your life in Germany. Not with the taxes and social insurances. You're not gonna make it.
Yep.
Even if you work your whole life, a normal job, middle class, you will not be able to afford a house in Germany.
Well, I have good news for you there. When the euro collapses and its value spirals to nothing, lots of people are going to be earning millions of euros because €1 million won't be worth toilet paper
Anymore. Not gonna happen. All the things you have to pay, social insurances, it's just adding up and making your quality of life go down. You know how much I had to pay health insurance back in Germany the last year? It was €1,000 a month. €1,000 a month. It's €12,000 a year. If you're self-employed, it's almost like 20%. Once you earn like €5,000 a month in income, you have to pay €1,000 of that to the health insurance provider. Now I got international health insurance. I pay less than €130 a month for international health insurance. I can go to any doctor in the world. Yeah, cost of living changes your life. So when you talk to people in their 20s and ask them if they're saving, investing, they say no. What's the point? They just spend it all because there's no point in saving for something you can never afford. And it's not just the housing, the whole infrastructure in Germany is falling apart. You just have to look at the trains. Germany has...
Yep, but it's same thing in the United States, collapsing infrastructure. It's a good indication of the economic health of a country is its infrastructure. And if it's collapsing, you're in a declining country.
Had the reputation to have one of the best train systems in the world, always on time, etc. But those times have long passed. Now the German train system aims for a punctuality rate for trains of 60%. That's what they're aiming
Aiming for 60%. And it gets worse.
for. Aiming, you know? And the train in Germany is only considered late if it's more than 10 minutes late. So
Those 60% that are on time, they could still all be like 9 minutes late.
the train is 9 minutes late, and the statistics, it's still on time. You would be mad to go with public transport to the airport and not have like a 2 or 3 hour buffer in there, because every time you want to go to the airport, one train gets cancelled, the next one is 1 hour delayed, you're gonna spend a few extra hours getting to the airport with the train. It's not reliable anymore. I've traveled a lot of
That's
countries
terrible.
and I've never encountered such a bad.
Europe, it used to be that you could go anywhere with public transportation. You could rely on it. And that's why a lot of people never bothered getting cars. With public transportation getting to this level, it's a terrible hit to the quality of life of anyone living in these countries.
Train system anywhere, not even India. In India, every train I took was on time, every single one of them. How is that possible? I don't understand. So yeah, if you can't rely on public transport anymore, that's a huge downstep in quality of life, because you can't reliably get anywhere, which kind of sucks, right? It's kind of ironic that Germany is still spending like hundreds of millions of euro in developing aid to other countries, while at the same time it's becoming itself a developing country. Just last year, a major bridge has collapsed in the city of Dresden. So infrastructure in Germany is falling apart. They don't have enough money, but they're
They're spending also millions and millions and millions on housing migrants in Germany when they have collapsing infrastructure.
supporting other countries, which is a good thing. If you have the money, you should
And yes, the foreign aid, huge fraud there, I'm sure.
support other countries to get to your living standards. But if that comes at a cost of your own living standards, not sure if that's a good idea anymore. You should be only financing what you can afford. You shouldn't spend money you don't have. And yet, despite all this, people keep voting for the same two parties over and over again. For decades, two parties have been ruling this country, CDU and SPD.
Reminds me of Japan that had one ruling party for like decades and decades and decades. That only recently, finally, there were others that came in. It's those two parties are U.S. puppet parties, and get Germany to go in to push the EU and give up their sovereignty to the EU, debase their currency through debasing the euro with debt to fund Ukraine, etc.
They decided the future of Germany. That's what we got from it. And apparently people don't want to learn, especially for those two parties. Most people voting for them are over 60. They're retirees. They have voted for those parties their whole lives, and they're not going to change it, most of them. And because Germany is such an aging country, the majority of people is actually above 60. They're the biggest voter group. Apart from people voting for the same parties over and over again, Germany.
And those older people are the ones that are still captured overwhelmingly by propaganda, by the media. They actually trust what the media tells them. And so they're completely fucked over, brainwashed, mind fucked.
Itself is not really a democracy anymore. I wouldn't call it that, because there's this other party, AfD, and they are the second biggest party right now. But no other party will talk to them, vote with them.
Oh, but the collapse of the dollar and the euro, which is going to be a wake-up moment. It'll be a total collapse of mainstream media at the same time. All faith in legacy media will vanish. Any remaining, those older 60% that suddenly don't have their pensions anymore. Yeah, they're going to say that maybe the media lied to them. I've been lying to them their whole life. Yes, they're going to come up to that realization when they no longer have a pension. And there's going to be a big wake-up moment. People waking up now already after COVID, but the rest of them, the slowest ones, they'll wake up at the last moment when their lifestyle and their way of life completely collapses.
Or discuss anything with them. They are just pretending they don't exist. They have always done that. And they're even trying to ban this other party, which doesn't sound very...
It's not democratic. We just looked at polls the other day. 28% of Germans support the AfD. And there's still some people trying to ban the party. You banned what 28% of your people support. You can't even pretend to be a democracy anymore.
Very democratic to me. They're always accusing this other party of being...
You're a Ukraine-style democracy where, after the Maidan Revolution, where U.S. funded actors overthrew the democratically elected president, They went around and either killed or chased out of the country anyone who was even remotely pro-Russian. And then they held election, and surprisingly, everyone is anti-Russian. Yeah, if you threw violence and rule changes, banning parties. I mean, Ukraine has more banned parties, I think, than anywhere else. You don't have a democracy anymore. If you give the voters only one choice at the voting booth, you're not a democracy.
Undemocratic, but by not even talking to them, not letting them be part of the conversation, basically, they are being the undemocratic parties. That's just logic. I mean, people must understand this, right? In a democracy,
people are against migration, and you got to give them a party to vote for that is anti-migration, or you're not a democracy.
If those parties get a big share of votes, in this case like 20%, that's like 1/5 of all
28% in the latest polls. 28% AfD in Germany.
People in Germany, and they can't be represented in a democracy if the other parties don't acknowledge their existence. It doesn't matter what you think about them. It doesn't matter what views they have. There needs to be a discourse. And
like I said, you have this group of older people still captured by the media that is ultimately controlled by the U.S. deep state worldwide, including Germany, pushing the same narratives in every country. And the United States, part of maintaining its dollar hegemony, is desperately trying to have all these governments, this dwindling population that still believes the propaganda, desperately trying to save those governments. But so the dam will break somewhere in Europe in a big way. Brexit was one example of that happening. It'll be harder for other countries to get out of the EU because anywhere that's accepted the EU currency, as you've already given up a huge part of your sovereignty, and it'll be hard for you to get out of that because it gives Brussels leverage to make any decision to leave the EU so much more painful because of you've given Brussels control of your currency.
in Germany, there is no discourse, not between the parties. And if you say anything that stands in the view of what this party represents, people will exclude you from society, or at least they will try to. And this is also a very dangerous situation because it's creating an isolation for different groups of people in a society. And if certain
you're not allowed to talk about all the rapes that are going on because that might make people like have negative view of all these Afghan men that are in your country.
Groups of people feel isolated, they become more radicalized in both directions. And that is not good for a democracy. So Germany saying, we're the most democratic country in the world is absolute bullshit. It's just not true. I think many other European countries are more democratic.
Switzerland is probably the most democratic country in the world with its direct democracy, where you could just have some Swiss citizen propose a measure, get signatures, then all of the country votes on it, and it passes. And you don't even need politicians involved. That's Switzerland. And that, I think, is probably the most democratic country in the world.
You have the same parties in Austria, in the Netherlands, and they're not being ganged up upon. You know, they are in talks with other parties. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's what a democracy is. So I would say Germany calls itself a democracy, but it doesn't act like one. That's also the reason why the AfD has become so popular among a fifth or more of German voters, because there are
it's now a fourth, or more than a fourth, 28%.
Parties, they won't address the issues that have arisen in the last 2 decades. So that's why the party was formed, right? Because people are unhappy with politics. It's kind of sad to see in Germany that the political left is encouraging violence against the political right, because left and right are just a political spectrum. You can talk about things, or you should be able to talk about things, find a compromise. But in Germany, things are so divided between the people that the left is calling for violence against the right. The most absurd thing about this is that political actors from the left spectrum are encouraging this and saying, yeah, this is good.
Just, as I've said it, I might as well show Germany's anti-immigration AfD party soars to record highs. Support, poll finds 28%.
It's a good thing. Neither side should choose violence just to silence the opposition. That's stuff from like authoritarian countries. And in general, I don't see Germany heading in a good way when it comes to free speech. People are getting arrested for
violence on leftist United States and in Europe. It's the propaganda, media apparatus. It's part of the desperation to, it's losing control more and more of the population in terms of what people believe. And Encouraging violence is one of its response. It's part of this dying U.S. empire, is this violence from leftists all over the world that are severely propagandized.
Posting memes on the internet. Literally. 5 years ago, you could have only imagined this from authoritarian countries.
Oh yeah, they've gone after people for posting memes, mean memes about a politician, and so let's put them in jail.
Africa or the Middle East or something like that. But that would have been
They talk all this talk in Europe about how bad Russia is, but Russia isn't doing this.
unimaginable in Europe. But now the UK is mass arresting people. Germany is following suit.
And there's some reporters are being completely debanked. Like, if you dare being a pro-Russia in any way, not even pro-Russia, just not being supportive of the Ukraine war, there are people that have been completely debanked, to have their passports taken away, and it's insane.
Comedy is over. Yeah, memes are over. Critical thinking is not allowed on the internet anymore. Nowadays, people even get arrested for stating facts. It's kind of ridiculous. It really started to get
There are only two genders. To jail with you, says Germany.
like this around COVID, you know, the people weren't allowed to say certain things. Ever since COVID, the state propaganda in Germany has been rising a lot. You can see it really in the news how the government.
Yeah, that's one aspect. The propaganda used to be more subtle. Go back even 10 years. It was nowhere near as blatant. But as the deep state, the establishment loses control, its propaganda is getting more and more blatant. Just like its market manipulations with regard to Iran war. More and more blatant than it was in the past. It's a system under stress and becomes more extreme.
And the news outlets that are controlled by the government, like public TV, they're trying to paint a certain picture that is pretty far off of reality, what the everyday people experience.
Yep.
So they're just continuing to ignore the problems. So Germany's crumbling away slowly. Free speech, quality of life, everything. It's pretty much a downward spiral. And I don't see the bottom in yet anytime soon.
I see the bottom. It's within the next 10 years. And it's going to be currency collapse involved in it. It's not going to be fun. But it's after that's over, for people that are willing to work hard, it will be better. But it's not going to be a fun time the next 5 years.
Has to get much worse before most people will realize that something has to change. And at that point, it's going to get very, very ugly, in my opinion. But looking at history, all of this is pretty normal. I can recommend you to read the book, The Fourth Turning, or The Fourth Turning is Here, the second release, which basically describes from history the cycles of society, that about every 100 years there's a major crisis.
Yeah, no, this one is never going to be anything like it. There's never been a global conspiracy like the one run by the Treasury's ESF, the deep state, that's impacted nearly everywhere in the world. And there's never been a global reserve currency in the way the dollar was. And the collapse of the United States financial system is going to impact the world in a way nothing has in the past. And the collapse of the dollar. So there's no books to read to prepare for what's coming once that gets underway, the de-dollarization of the world. But that's still, I think, a few years away. But first there's going to be a spiraling period of stagflation, like there was in the 1980s. And that's going to lead into hyperinflation. But still probably years off. It takes time, people. It takes time for 80-year conspiracy, 80-year deep state apparatus to completely collapse.
Crisis that reshapes the whole society, and throughout history, those crises had to happen every 80 to 100 years. I think in general, the West is going to be a pretty ugly place to live in the next decade. It doesn't matter if it's the USA
Yes.
or Western Europe. The time has come for change.
One optimistic point I would put out is like the collapse of Soviet Union and how bad it was for Russians there, and they recovered. And Russia right now is doing really well today. It's an example that, yes, no matter how bad it becomes, Europe and the United States will eventually recover, but it's going to be very bad first.
And change in this proportion is never pretty. It's going to be pretty ugly for a lot of people. So what to do? Looking to the east. This is actually west. East. What does this mean for the future of Germany? Well, right now the system is falling apart pretty much. What comes after, we don't know if it's going to be better or worse. Only time will tell. It's not that I hate Germany. There's just too many things that are going wrong. I mean, it's
A
all
lot of the people in the establishment in Germany and in the United States, there's going to be a period. There's going to be a period where the Asmongold of the world, he's going to get more and more angry over the next few years as he finds out more and more of what's really happening. And people listening to him, there's going to be, I don't know if lynching or at least like what they did to the Germans after World War II, trials for everyone involved with the collapse of the United States and Europe. They're not going to retire in peacefully. I guarantee you that. Well, have to wait for that.
all fun and games until you have children, and then you have to think about their futures to make sure that you have a good quality of life for yourself and for your children. You go away, right? That's also why so many people come to Germany, because they hope to have a better future there for the children, and it's understandable. If you're coming from the Middle East, from Africa, things in Germany are probably still much better than in those countries they're coming from. That's why they're coming, right? But if you're
Well, that's going to reverse. It's once you enter the spiral of hyperinflation, you're going to have some migrants that go back willingly because they think, oh, my home country is better than this.
a German and you're used to a certain standard and you just see it going down, then you start thinking about how things could be different or were different even, even because you have experienced them. So I'm happy to be part of a different society that appreciates people, that appreciates the work they do, that appreciates community. And in Germany, I don't see any community left. It's just a divided people
Yep.
that can't agree on anything. Germany is a sinking ship, and I'm
Yep.
not going to stay on it to drown. The only thing that could
Yeah, it's worse than you know. I guarantee you. And considering what's coming, because what the Iran war is going to set into motion.
turn Germany around would be a radical reform, radical changes, but
No fixing it. Ponzi schemes cannot be fixed. And the US dollar has a hegemony, which the EU has been dragged into. Not going to go in all the economic ties, but the dollar goes down, the EU goes down with it. Dollar's collapse will destroy faith in all paper currencies not backed by gold. And Europe is drowning in debt, and it's getting even more debt to fund Ukraine. So it's going down too. There's no fixing that. If you accelerate it, it actually means the ultimate collapse will be less bad if it happened sooner. But the ultimate collapse, the only thing you can do with Ponzi scheme is collapse it right away unless people are hurt in the long run, or you let it play out and yeah, there's no way to fix a Ponzi scheme.
politicians have been saying ever since I can remember, like for 20 years, they have been saying Germany needs to be less bureaucratic, there needs to be less regulation, need to be more attractive for entrepreneurs, for businesses.
If you collapse it right away, you might be able to save some of Germany's industry that hasn't collapsed yet by turning to Russia. But some small benefits like that, but they won't happen.
They have been saying that, and they know that. But then the next year, they do more bureaucracy, they do more regulation. They know all of this, and they say it, but they also say they want to change it, but then they don't. They do the opposite. It's mad. It's mental. Maybe when the system is on the floor.
It appears mad from the outside if you think it's an honestly functioning system. If you don't understand the deep state, the corruption, the conspiracy going on behind the scenes, it just appears mad. There's just endless stream of madness.
I'm gonna come back to Germany. I'm gonna run for chancellor and fix all this mess. But where's my journey going, you ask now? I gave you all the reasons not to stay or move to Germany. For me, the best country in the world right now to live in is Japan. So that's where I'm going to spend the majority.
And Japan recently escaped one-party rule, and it has an anti-immigration prime minister. So there's reasons to be optimistic about Japan.
Of my time now, things work there.
But their currency is a mess. Their currency is also going to go down when the dollar goes down. There's too much deep ties. It might not be a hyperinflation situation, but the things are going to be rough there too when the dollar collapses.
It's orderly. I can't really say anything negative about Japan. The only negative thing is the working culture. But since I'm self-employed, I'm not going to be part of the working culture there. I think nowadays it's all about values. Which values do you share?
Actually, the country I think that's most immune and is going to survive best the dollar collapse is Russia. China is too connected to the global economy and to U.S. consumerism. It's going to be the position America was during the Great Depression, where U.S. was a manufacturing powerhouse, and suddenly Germany has hyperinflation and can't afford to buy anything from the United States, and all these factories lose all their foreign customers, and it's a complete mess that way. That's going to hurt China, but Russia, with all the sanctions it's been under, is most isolated from the global economy, and therefore the best place to handle it. It also can make all the materials it needs. It doesn't need to rely on external factors. So, yeah, Russia is probably the best place to handle the collapse of the dollar.
Share, and which values are you willing to be part of? And Germany has lost a lot of its values that make life in a society worth living. And I can see those values very much in Japan still. There are values that are better than others. For everyone, that's different. But you have to choose your values, and then you have to act on them. And then if you're lucky, you can choose to live with those. And I really love the values Japan has. You can leave your wallet in a subway and you're gonna see it again. 99% chance you're gonna see your wallet with all the money in there. Small children, they can commute to kindergarten, to elementary school. 5 years old, they take the subway.
Yeah, and there was a time in Europe where that would have been nearly the case too. It's a high trust society that actually can function because it hasn't been overrun by migrants. That's Japan.
30 minutes, no problem. Other Japanese people are gonna watch out for them. Nothing's gonna happen to them. Unimaginable in Germany. It's not gonna happen. You would be mad to send your child with public transport in Berlin to go to kindergarten or elementary school. It would be extremely irresponsible. But in Japan, that's normal.
Yeah, you'd be mad to even your teenager, let them go alone.
And I love that. Just being in Japan, seeing how people are to each other, it kind of makes me want to be a better person, because I feel like the uncivilized person there coming from Europe, which is kind of funny and absurd. So much to learn. Finally, the barbarians are going to become civilized. But of course, as long as children don't have to go to school, I'm gonna be traveling a lot, so you're still gonna see a lot of videos of me on the road. I really enjoy being in Southern Europe. People are nice, food is good. I'm gonna visit Germany once in a while. My parents still live there, so I have to go back there once in a while, and then I'm gonna make some videos there as well. But the majority of the year, I'm gonna be not there.
Well, good luck to you, and hope your move out of Germany goes well. This was a very interesting video on shocking decline of Germany. It'll be on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.